Hello. My name is Bill. I'm an alcoholic. And I'm going to keep my phone up here and try and get done early. Boy, oh boy. I've had a couple weeks to get nervous about this, and boy, it's two things I hate. One's jury duty, and the other one's speaking at an AA meeting. But at least an AA meeting's only, this is only for an hour. Jury duty is like a week, so it's not too bad. But it's an honor to be up here. It's an honor to be asked by this group because they get so many good speakers, and it's going to be. Don't feel like I could ever, fulfill all the great speakers I've heard, and I'll live up to all the great speakers I've heard here. But I've been sober quite a while. I got sober in January 10th, 1987. That's 30 years, and that's one day at a time, and I can't believe it. I'm kind of proud of that. That's like the only thing I've ever stuck to my whole life. It's a pretty amazing thing, and it's when I went to treatment in New Hampshire. I'm from Maine. I did most of my drinking up there in New England, around those areas, traveling around, drinking all over the place on road trips. I got to treatment, and the last thing I wanted to do was quit drinking. I couldn't imagine my life ever. Drinking was just so important to me. It was like what I thought I was made of. That was like made me a man. I was 31 years old. I heard in that treatment, I heard a day at a time, and that was like the second or third day in, and it really clicked. And I've kind of had that philosophy every day. You get up in the morning, and just that was and then you go to bed at night. If you didn't drink that day, it was a great day, and that got me through a lot of days. And through the years, it's really progressed. My life has just gotten phenomenal. I think I had the best day of my life yesterday. Yesterday was unbelievable, and today would have been great too if I didn't have to speak tonight. It started out really great, and I was like, oh gosh, I got to speak tonight. And I was like, oh, but I don't know. I'm on fire right now. It's really amazing, and I owe it all to AA. I start my day with what I've kind of been told, and I'm kind of back to basics. I'm back to basics with my program. I'm over 30 years sober, and I'm going back to the basics, and the basics work, and that's what I was taught, and it's so here I am, and so I go back to right at the beginning. I come from a family up in Maine. We're a Catholic family. There was 6 kids, and I always say I didn't have any choice but to be an alcoholic. It was like it wasn't my fault. I was born to be one. I come from a family of drinkers. They're pretty involved in the Catholic Church and stuff, but shoot, the priest drank, the nuns drank, everybody drank. It was like I just grew up around drinking. I couldn't wait till I was old enough to start drinking. My father, he got in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous about 5 years before I did. I learned how to, I was following in his footsteps. I think his mother, I think she was an alcoholic. Never saw her drink. She was pretty old, but I've heard some stories, and I think she was an alcoholic. I think my grandfather, I never got to meet him. He died when my father was 12, but I heard a story that he was on like a 3-day binge, came back home, and then got sick and died like 2 days later. So I mean, that's how my grandfather died. I come, my heritage, they're all successful people, but they're all drinkers, I just couldn't wait till I was old enough to drink. So I grew up in a drinking household. My father, he crashed and burned with his drinking when he was in his 50s. So I kind of learned, followed along in his footsteps. I got a younger brother who's 9 years younger than I am. He's got 29 years of sobriety. He got sober when he was 24. So I taught him how to drink. So I carried on he followed right along. I got two of my sisters got their masters in I guess therapy and what do we call it, mental health, or what's the master's, whatever. But one's a therapist, the other one's a guidance counselor in high school. Then I got another sister who she's got 30 years of clean from 6 months after I went to treatment, she came clean on her eating disorder. So she wasn't a drinker, but she was her drug was eating, and so she had a really tough recovery from that, but she's been clean on her eating for 30 years, so which is really, really amazing, because she kind of did that all by herself without the help of a program like this. She went to treatment 30 years ago this fall down in Florida, and she got on a food program. She was very instrumental in my early sobriety, because she had to really do a lot of therapy, a lot of working to get past her disorder, and I had to do a lot just to keep up with her. Just all the stuff that she was breakthroughs that she was making, and so I come from a really alcoholic family. When my father went to treatment, we all had to go. We had to go every weekend to this family program, and they really emphasized that it was a family disease. And we were the typical. We were the alcoholic family. We could have been the poster for an alcoholic family, because it really affected all of us. So the males in the family all are in AA, and I have an unbelievably recovery-oriented family, and I don't know if I could have made it these 30 years without that. I got an unbelievable support system with my family, and I absolutely love my siblings to death. So I grew up in this family. I had a phenomenal childhood. I had more than anybody. I've never heard of anybody that's had a better childhood than I did. I mean, I'm up in Maine. We had outdoors. We had a lake that in the summertime we were on. I was a spoiled little kid. We had a nice house. We had plenty of money. I had everything I really wanted. We had this really nice house, but it was an alcoholic house. Ours was like in a nice neighborhood, but ours was always the one that the lawn wasn't mowed. It was like, you could see the dysfunction a little bit. We looked pretty good on the outside, but I think, there was a lot of stuff going on the inside. But there wasn't, there wasn't any abuse, there wasn't any of that kind of stuff, but it was kind of a subtle thing. It was, my father, he went and drank with the guys after work, then came home, and then he, started drinking, and they'd have people over and it was cocktail hour, and they had cocktail parties, and they had all that. It was drinking. And, they had fun, there was a lot of laughter and all that, and so, there was nothing, I was always taught it's okay to drink as long as you don't get drunk. And I could never quite figure that one out. It was, I got a few, I could drink a 6-pack or something like that, and I got pretty drunk. My father had a real hollow leg. He could drink he'd drink like a 16-ounce glass of vodka with a little bit of Fresco on the top. He'd drink a couple of those, and he'd be fine. He seemed to act fine. But he was kind of the typical alcoholic that I think you saw when he first came in, and it was, guys like him, they'd reach 50 years old, and all of a sudden their liver would start breaking down. They couldn't, they couldn't take care of the alcohol anymore. You know, they couldn't digest it, whatever they do. The body couldn't handle the alcohol anymore. Liver starts going bad, and you start getting addicted, and you know, he had to start doing the morning drink and all that kind of stuff. It's kind of the old-time alcoholic. So he got sober in his 50s. And, you know, and I think, like, you know, I see today, you know, with all, when I came in the late 80s, you know, I was one of the younger people at 31. You know, there was a few people, maybe Steve got in when he was a teenager, but he was very rare to have a teenager in here, very rare to have 20-year-olds in here. They all thought I was like so young at 31, and now it's, you know, there's a lot of younger people. Maybe it's the all the other stuff that's going on that brings people in here quicker, and it's, I think it's all the education that we've had with the effects of alcohol and all the other stuff that's going on. And thank God, you know, with the great work that's going on, you know, people get in here earlier, and you know, and you know, get their life straightened around earlier and stuff. But so you know, I grew up in this family, and you know, it was we had a great neighborhood and all this other stuff. But there's a common thread that kind of went through my family. You know, I talked to my siblings, and we all had this really, I don't know why, but we all had this insecurity. We all this kind of why we grew up. We had everything, but we had this kind of insecurity. Like, I never thought I was quite good enough. You know, I played sports and all this other stuff, and you know, I just kind of never thought I really measured up. And you know, then you know, once I got that taste of alcohol, you know, it's and you know, I don't know if anybody else had experienced that and stuff, but alcohol, you know, I was kind of an insecure, shy kid. Then you had alcohol, and you know, I really came out of my shell. And you know, it was, you know, I needed it. You know, to walk into a social situation, you know, I had to have alcohol. I probably, you know, I was young for I was young in school. Graduated high school when I was 17, just barely 17. You know, I still was you know, I was real physically immature. I was really mentally immature. But I probably started drinking my freshman year in high school, so I was 13 when I first started drinking. You know, I went to, it was just, you know, there was a lot of drinking in my high school. You know, there wasn't a lot of drugs. You know, I don't remember a lot of drugs. Marijuana was just, you know, pot was just starting. This was not back in 1969, 1970. So it was, but it was mostly, you know, it was drinking beer and whatever, and all this, you know, and I wanted to play sports and all this other stuff, and you know, I was pretty good. But this, I went to this high school at the end of the year football party, and it was all the upperclassmen, and I was like the only freshman that got to go. I got to go because my sisters were cheerleaders, and so I got to go. And that was like my first drinking time, and so I had probably 3 beers. You know, I spilled one, I drank one, I threw, you know, dumped the other one out. But I got drunk. You know, I was like 13, and I got to go to this party. You know, and that kind of started. After that, I was drinking every weekend, and I never really turned into an everyday drinker, but. If I didn't drink, I was smoking pot. So I was getting high one way or another every day. My father was an everyday drinker. I didn't want to be like him. You know, and I had this little awakening. I was about 16, and you know, I came home about 12 o'clock one night, and my dad's sitting up. He's drunk. I'm drunk. He's having a heart-to-heart talk with me. You know, and I'm just like, you know, I'm hating every second of it. I just want to, you know, get out of there, get away from my father, go to bed. And I came to this, you know, I remember having that someday I'm going to have to quit drinking. You know, I knew I had this little epiphany when I was 16 that I was turning into my dad. And I was going to be, you know, I was like, someday I'm going to have to quit drinking. and I think I quickly forgot that, so I went through high school. I played sports, played basketball, played football. It was really nice up in Maine. And, it's kind of a little small towns, and you didn't have to be real big. And it was way back then. I got to compete, got to play the varsity stuff, and my senior year in high school, my drinking had really progressed by that time, and I was a real mess. I was playing on the football team, and I was hungover almost every game. We used to play on Saturday afternoons. Here they play Friday nights. We played Saturday afternoons. I was out partying every Friday night, and I was hungover playing in those games. I should have been kicked off the basketball team, but the problem was they would have had to probably kick off the star player too. So I got to stay because if I went, he was going to go too. We ended up winning the state championships in basketball. I started a few games, and I was a mess. My drinking and everything had really progressed, and I would bring a pint of whiskey in my gym bag and on away trips, and we'd sneak it in the back of the bus and we'd drink. I mean, everything I did revolved around drinking, and it was such a and it's really crazy, because I was this good little kid, growing up, and we're somewhere along the line. I know I was kind of trying to think about this, that I got away with all kinds of stuff. It wasn't bad stuff. I think like at 6 years old, I got away with a few lies, and then a little bit more, and then. When I was back then, everybody smoked cigarettes, so we'd always stealing cigarettes. I smoked cigarettes when I was 8 years old. It was all my friends did. That was kind of like there were cigarettes everywhere. You could just steal them from your parents, and you'd go out and smoke butts. And the other thing about growing up back then was I was totally unsupervised. We had a neighborhood, and we just all us kids, we just ran wild. And my parents were totally oblivious to everything I was doing. So I'm growing up, and I'm getting away with all this little stuff. My parents had no idea what I was doing. It wasn't, I didn't do any like big crimes, but it was little petty stuff. I might do some shoplifting. I might, I'm stealing cigarettes. I'm stealing, a little bit of liquor. And then on the weekends, when I get to be a teenager, I'm drinking like crazy. But my parents let us drink, and that's really the crazy part. It was okay to drink. My parents would let us have friends over, parties at their house, and they would rather have us drinking there than us being out. And I mean, they would go out for the evening with their friends, and they would one night in particular. This is really crazy, but they were hanging out at Dunkin' Donuts, drinking coffee at 11:30 at night, waiting for it to be late enough for them to come home and to stop the party. They're letting us do that. It was okay back then. It was really crazy in this community that it was okay to drink as long as you didn't get in trouble. It was really insane. All my friends' parents, they would be driving down the road, have a pile full of kids, and they'd have a beer between their legs driving down the road. I can remember this kind of stuff. We just grew up around it. It was okay to drink as long as you didn't get in kind of trouble. So of course, I was hungover, trying to play sports, trying to play all this other stuff. I was trying to do school, and I was just burning myself up. But I had to lie my way out of a whole bunch of stuff, and just barely graduated from high school. Then I somehow got into college, and so the whole thing just kept on going. And college, So I went up to the University of Maine. It's a really nice, really nice university, great campus, and it was just like a big high school. I found all the party people up there, and it took me over 5 years to graduate, but I graduated from there. And with all this, I graduated with a 2.2 grade point average, which is just barely enough to stay in. And every semester, I would say, okay, I'm going to go to all my classes. I'm going to study. I'm going to do well, and I would do really well for about 3 or 4 weeks, and I'd get A on all my first exams, and then I'd start missing class. I'd start partying more, never going to class, and then I'd just have to cheat my way into getting it on the final, and I'd get a C in the course, and then and I'd start the next semester and I'd go through it again. I'm okay, this time I'm going to change, and then it lasts for 2 or 3 weeks, and that whole cycle. I did that whole cycle for 5 years, and I somehow I graduated from college. And I graduated college, and I had this 2.2 grade point average. I didn't feel like I learned a thing. And that insecurity, that low self-worth, now, I'm a mess. I got this degree, I feel like it's nothing. I'm feeling about really, really bad. So my drinking and everything else is just, it's progressing. I'm trying to change, and I have no idea what I'm doing. But so what do? I go to work for a beer and wine distributor. So I started. They sold candy tobacco at convenience stores, and then they had a beer and wine division. And so I started off selling, the candy and the cigarettes, and then I moved up to be a wine salesman. And it's a great, good job for someone who's drinking a lot. It's like it was right down my alley. When I was a teenager, I was trying to figure out what I'm going to do with my life, and the only thing I could really figure out was I envisioned myself either owning a restaurant or owning a bar. I wanted to be a businessman that drank. And that's the only thing I could figure out that I could do. And lo and behold, what do? I get sober, and I got a restaurant now. But I had a chance to get a bar too, but I decided in sobriety that wouldn't be a good idea. Actually, I had a really good opportunity for that, but I was thinking, I'm gonna have to do happy hours, I'm gonna have to do all that kind of stuff, and I felt like I'd be a drug dealer with alcohol. It's like it wouldn't quite work out with my sobriety. But anyway, so I get through college, and then I'm working for this company. It's friends of the family, and I'd work like crazy all week, trying to do the best I can, just so that trying to be a salesperson with a low self-esteem, low self-worth is really, really hard. It's horrible. And I'd work all week long, really try my best, and then by Friday afternoon, it would just be, get a bottle, let's go party, let's go on a road trip, let's go. And I would get totally wiped out, inebriated all weekend, sober up on Sunday, then go back to work on Monday. And, it was just, I did that all through my late 20s. And I was just trying to change. What's wrong with me? I was, everybody that I went to college with, are all getting these really good jobs. They're moving on. They're getting married. They're going on with their life, and I'm just in this spiraling down on this cycle. Just why can't I make my life work? I was just, watching the years go by and thinking that one of these years everything's going to click. One of these days I'm just going to figure it all out, and I wasn't. And so It was, I worked, I was pretty industrious. I worked as hard as I could, but I was not getting anywhere. Then there came an opportunity to move down here. So it was, I had a cousin that moved down here, and he was starting a deli down here, and he needed some help. And so he called up my mother, and he said, asked what I was doing, and that he needed some help. So I looked down here, and this beautiful area. And I said, okay, here's my chance. I can start over. And so I quit my job as a wine salesman, and I was going to move down here, and that was right around Christmas. And then I went on what I did when I didn't have to work. I didn't have any kind of responsibility. I just went on a drinking binge. I went trying to have going away parties for about 2 weeks, and I had 3 or 4 pretty good ones, and then it just kind of got people got kind of tired of it. So I wanted to keep going, and then it came. It was New Year's Eve, and that was 1986 into 1987, and so I'm moving down here, going to make my big start and whatever, and so we went up to this ski resort with a bunch of buddies, and we partied for about 48 hours or something. I didn't sleep, just did all kinds of stuff, and it was actually absolutely the most miserable night of my life. But I was just trying to drown out I was not having fun, and I just kept doing more and more and more and more and more, just trying to feel right. Then the next day it was New Year's Day, and I'm over a friend's house. It was actually my younger sister's boyfriend, who was, he wasn't doing too well either, but, and we're over this house, and okay, you can see it in the corner. It's got the pyramid of beer cans. It's got a great big TV. It's got a couple of couches with the springs popping out. I'm 31. They're all in their late 20s. This is kind of the party house that I was hanging out at. And so my sister came over, and that afternoon, it was New Year's Day, and she saw me. And she said she went home and started crying. I thought I looked great. I thought everybody else looked like crap, but it's denial of it. I didn't think there was anything wrong with me. I hadn't slept for 2 days, but and partied all. And so she started she got hold of my other siblings, my mother, and she started to put together a family intervention. So they organized all that, and it was the same thing we did with my father 5 years before. We had a family intervention on my father 5 years before. And, basically what you do is you get all the significant people, and you pack his bag, and you say, and you reserve a room in a treatment center for him, and you say, either go to treatment, there's your bag. If you don't go, see you later, you're out, we don't want anything to do with you anymore. And so my job, and we all had little jobs with my father. My job was to be between him and the door, because when you have this intervention, the first instinct of the alcoholic is flight. So my father saw us all there, and he figured out that we're having this intervention, and he was heading out the door. And my job was to stop him, so we could talk to him. But at the time, my father was about 270 pounds, and he went right through me and out the door, and we had to kind of tackle him out in the driveway and drag him back in. But so when it came to be my turn, and it was just my siblings, my mother, and it was the day before I'm moving down here, and I thought they were all coming over for a little breakfast and wish me, pat me on the back, wish me luck, and so they're all sitting there, and they go, well, they said 2 words, the reason, and I immediately knew what the reason was, and I stood up, and my brother was between me and the door, just the way it was all coached. He stood up, and I looked at him, and I knew what was going on. I sat back down, and I really didn't think I had a drinking problem. I didn't think that I was that bad, because I wasn't an everyday drinker, but I got high every day, Um, you know, on the weekends, you know, probably like a lot of us, I don't know how I didn't kill anybody. I drove drunk every weekend. If I was behind the wheel, I was always behind the wheel at 2 o'clock in the morning. You know, I was obliviated. I don't know how I got one DWI, and actually that was a blessing because I would have killed somebody that night. I was going to drive 17 miles home, and I pulled into 7-Eleven. I ran out of gas, and I had to I had a little Volkswagen, and I had to push that up to the gas pump, and I stumbled in there and got like some gas, and I think the guy behind the counter called the cops on me because as soon as I pulled out, I saw a cop whip around and started chasing me. I tried to outrun the cop in my Volkswagen, but I didn't. But anyway, you know, and that was a couple years before. Actually, that was about 4 years before, and I took that job at that distributorship, and this is how crazy it was back then. I was in the courthouse on a payphone for my dime, which they don't have payphones anymore. I had to call up the job, and I accepted the job to work for this distributorship in the courtroom, losing my license for a month. And I said, well, I'm going to lose my license for a month because da-da-da. And they said, that's no problem. You know, it's like, you know, they let me get away with that. You know, it's like, well, you got to train anyway for a month. And you know, it's just, times were just really different. And in that little town, you know, I got away, knew the cops, I knew everybody. I could get away with all the stuff that was going on. You can't get away with it like you used to, and thank God. So where was I? I don't know where I was. So they reserved a room for me, and this is kind of a funny story. So my brother hadn't gotten sober yet, and he's kind of a mess. And so we get into my mother's car, and we got to drive 2 hours to New Hampshire from Maine. So I got this treatment center in New Hampshire, and we're having this huge snowstorm. We're getting 2 feet of snow. So my brother and I take off. He's got a bottle of vodka in the car because you got to have a bottle of vodka for the drunk, you know, to bring them to the treatment center in case they need it. And so I didn't think I had a problem drinking, but I went anyway. So somewhere in the back of my mind, I went to this treatment center anyway. I was up on this hill. It was beautiful. I mean, went to this awesome treatment center in New Hampshire, and it was up in the mountains, and food was great, and it was a resort pretty much. But he had to get up this hill, and my brother was just like, it took us like 5 times, and he was just bound and determined to get me up this hill into this treatment center, and he finally does. He kind of kicks me out the door, and he takes off, and I asked him, like, I said, what, you know. So he took off in my mother's car. He had $50. My mother gave him $50. So he's like 24. He's got $50 in his pocket. He's got a bottle of vodka, and he knew some girl in New Hampshire, and that's where he was going. And he finally copped up to that one. I was like, hey, whatever happened to that bottle of vodka? And he's just like, it was a pretty funny story. But so, you know, so they got me into treatment. I got out. You know, it was pretty amazing. I got out of there in 21 days. I didn't do the 28 days. I got out in 21 days because I really didn't have to detox because I wasn't an everyday drinker, but I was just kind of a weekend warrior. You know, just hearing that, you know, when I went in, there was no way I could ever envision my life without alcohol. You know, alcohol was what made me a man. You know, you weren't a man unless you drank. You know, just it was everything. You know, on the weekends, wherever I went, it was anytime I had any time, vacation, anything, it was just alcohol related. You know, it was just blowing it out. But you know, I can remember that they were talking about a day at a time. And the other thing they were talking about, like 2 or 3 days, was they said, look to the person to your right. We're in a circle. We're in this little discussion, all us newcomers. And look to your right and look to your left. And, you know, only one, you'll be lucky if one of you 3 make it. You know, and I looked looked to my left, looked to my right, and for some reason I said, I'm going to be the one that makes it, and I don't know what it was, that day at a time, and, it's just, it kind of clicked for me. It was like, if I'm, if I couldn't change, I fought all my life, all the way through to like 31, trying to change, trying to make something in my life, and I couldn't do it, and then it kind of dawned on me, wow, if I take the alcohol and all the other stuff away, I have a fighting chance, And, that ray of hope just went, and I've lived on that hope, ever since, and it got me through my early years of sobriety. So I get, and I had no idea that, getting out of that treatment center, that what the 12 steps and the 12 traditions was. That was a way of life. That was my, that was the answer to what I was searching for all my life. I grew up in this alcoholic home, this dysfunctional home. I was given so much freedom, and nobody knew what I was doing. I made up the rules as I went along with my life, and I somewhere along the line I missed the instructions on how to live life, how to succeed in life, and I was using alcohol to get through, and that where that gets you. And so I got out of treatment, and my cousin still wanted me to come down, so I moved down here, and so fresh out, they say, don't make any geographic real big moves and stuff, but that was a really good move for me. I left all my friends and all my drinking buddies up there. I came down here, and it took me about a week, and I finally found someone that knew something about AA, and I stumbled into a meeting. And I stumbled into this Tuesday night meeting, and it was Tom I. There was a bunch of, here I am, I walk in, I'm fresh out of treatment, and I walk in, and there's this big guy, sticks out his hand, welcome. I don't know if, most of you people know Tom I, and I came back the next week, and it's like, Bill, how you doing? The guy remembers your name, welcomes you in. And that started my journey in this program. And then, I was really lucky because it was about 15 people. Most of the people were in the 50s, 60s, 70s. And we hung out mostly down in Aberdeen. There was only like one meeting a night. So like everybody on Monday night, we all went to one place. And then Tuesday night, we went to our home group. And Wednesday night, we might go to the village chapel. Everybody went there. Thursday night we went here. So it was a real small community, but we all kind of went together, and it was pretty cool. But there was about 15 of us that were in our 20s and early 30s, and we all hung together pretty hard. We all tried to, we all hung out. We all tried, we worked. It wasn't quite as formal back then, they didn't, do the big book, whatever. You expect to do the steps and get your sponsor, do the steps and stuff, but it wasn't forced down your throat, quite as quickly as it is now. It took me about 7 or 8 months to finally do my 4th step, but that was okay. We did a lot of step meetings. It's really focused on step 1, 2, 3. I got my 4th step done. I got that 5th step done, and then I really felt a part of AA. It was a really big moment. That was like, okay, now I can move on to the rest of the program. But we all hung together really, and we went to meetings about every night. A lot of times there'd be a group of 6 or 7 of us. We're all hanging out, and it's like a weekend, and it's 8 o'clock. And we're all over somebody's apartment or something, and we'd have a meeting. We'd just say, okay, let's have a meeting. It's 8 o'clock, it's meeting time. And, we'd read the steps, and then we'd pick a topic, and we'd have these unbelievably great meetings. Just really, how it only takes 2 people to have a meeting. We used to do that quite often. I picked up my year chip in somebody's living room. We had one of those little, it was my anniversary, and somebody gave me their year chip. And that was, it was pretty cool, so I was really, really lucky. I think it's, I see all the young people here now, they're on fire. You guys are, just going crazy, and it's just really, it's like what we used to do, it's, that really laid the foundation, for me, through the year, it was really tough, it's like I saw a lot of people get well real fast, and I didn't. I didn't get well fast. I've had to go to a lot of meetings. I've had to, work the steps. My father died a couple years ago. He died with 35 years of sobriety. He was living out in California. I got to go out there and meet all his AA friends. There's a ton of, I didn't know what his program was like, but man, he had his community, he did the AA out there, so it was pretty awesome to see. My brother's got 29 years. His wife, it was pretty amazing. She died a month ago. I was supposed to speak here a month ago. I had to go up to her. She had cancer and died. She had over 20 years of sobriety. We went to this funeral in Brooklyn, and there was probably 500 people there at this funeral, and probably 450 of them were AA people. Unbelievable. They had so many, and such a large fellowship, such a connection with AA. I mean, it was the most amazing thing I've ever seen in my life. How the AA people just rallied around. How many friends they have in AA. How many, it's just. But with my life, it's been a slow burn. It's. I got a little business. I got a little business going. I've struggled in that business all the way through my 30s. My life was good. I'm a little businessman. I'm doing good. I'm putting all the AA stuff in there. I had it going pretty good in Southern Pines to try to expand into Fayetteville. That didn't go so well. Got a lot of debt. I've been working and basically, working, just kind of working through my life. I saw these, people make a lot of money, and I just never really made a lot of money for quite a while. It took me 20 years of working really hard. And, but I've always stuck to AA. Always never really gone very long without going to meetings. I got into 20 years of sobriety, and I kind of slipped away a little bit. I put my home group, kind of was just going to meetings all by myself. Didn't have a sponsor, just kind of floating along, But about 5 or 6 years ago, I had to kind of rededicate myself. I was still going to meetings and stuff, but and it's amazing. I got into my 50s. And all of a sudden, everything really started to click. Got everything kind of downsized in my business, started making some money. It's always kind of nice to make some money. Money helps. But part of it was that I stuck with the program. I've incorporated everything I can that I've learned in these rooms with everything outside of my life. A few years ago, I started back at the VAST group, made that my home group. Got a new sponsor, went through the big book, did this, went through the steps again. And it's amazing. It's, the service work. You stick around long enough in here, I don't really have to look for service work. Service work finds me. It's, you hang around here and it gets dumped on you. But the more service work I can do, the better my life goes. All the promises have come through, have come true for me. AA has given me self-worth. It's given me confidence. It's given me friends all over the place. basically, I've got a bunch of friends kind of outside the program, but I prefer the people inside the program. I love this program gives me everything that I really need. I can go into a social situation now, and I don't need to drink. I can grab a bottle of Perrier or something, and just look as good as anybody with a drink in their hand, And basically, I found out, I thought everybody drank growing up. I thought anybody that was worth anybody. But actually, you get out in the world and you go to these parties and nobody drinks. There's a little few people do, but most people do not drink the way that we drank. And that was pretty amazing to find out. I said like yesterday was probably the best day of my life. It was just amazing. I get up in the morning. I started doing some morning meditations. I've stuck to that for about a month. It's like I get up in the morning, do a little morning meditation. I got up yesterday, I was just really kind of grumpy. It didn't feel right. And I was like, why is this? I did my little meditation, but then all of a sudden everything clicked. I got on the phone, talked to my siblings, made some plans, and people just kind of started calling me. I asked some people for some help. I started delegating some stuff. It was just amazing. Things just like clicked and clicked and clicked all day long. I was actually, things were going so, I was almost feeling manic. It was, I'd never felt like I had to kind of calm myself down. I just wanted to go outside and just race cars. I went on foot. It's just amazing. Everything that this program is, it's in my life. I've had tragedy. I've had deaths. I've had that awful thing that happened to my sister-in-law. But the AA people were there. The community's there. I've got a support system. I've got a family that's in recovery. My siblings and everybody are in recovery. I've got a great sponsor. I've got, when I need them, it's amazing. I just can't, I can't tell you what AA has given me. It's a great life. And I hope everybody can stick around and do it a day at a time and get all the rewards that I've gotten out of it, because it's a great way of life, and thank you very much.